Thank you all for coming to celebrate the life of Glenn DeMots, and for Julie, Karen, and myself, our loving and wonderful father, and obviously for my mom, her best friend, and her beloved life companion. It means a lot that all of you have come for this, so thank you so much. As he was to many of you, he was also our friend, teacher, counselor, and advisor. Karen, Julie, advisor, is that very much an advisor to us, and to, I'm sure, a lot of you as well, in all the right ways. He was also a tremendous grandfather, brother, co-worker, neighbor, especially if you were in his HOA, you knew he was a really good neighbor, and a God-fearing Christian witness, and so much for so many people. Today we wanted to simply appreciate him, getting us all together to enjoy some things that remind us of him, listening to his favorite country music, thanks to his son-in-law Bill, who put that together for him. It was a big deal when my dad realized that he could compile a bunch of his favorite songs on DVD instead of owning like 20. And I think he still doesn't understand, or didn't understand, Spotify and all that stuff. So thanks to Bill, that helped. Bill won't come over with all that. He loved to eat a good olive burger. So for those of you who chose the olive burger, that's what I'm going to have too. Who had the olive burger? All right, that's a testament to him if you knew that or not. So he loved a good olive burger, especially one that was buy one, get one free somewhere. And he loved it with extra ketchup. And we're going to enjoy some Breyer's ice cream. It hadn't been Breyer's ice cream, and it hadn't been bought on sale, which I think he was looking from above because it was on sale at Myers this week. And Myers had enough if he bought enough Breyer's ice cream, hopefully for everybody. Again, it hadn't been bought on sale. So we even thought about putting Fox News on the screen to really kind of complete the picture. But those of us who are from California, we saw enough Fox News when he came to visit, and we didn't figure we'd throw the Fox News on him. So we hope you all had a chance, or have a chance, to share some stories and memories amongst yourselves. And we have a few folks that we have asked to share some of those in front of you. So, Mr. Knuser, I'm still going to be respectful. Mr. Fredericks, that's what I called them for so long. It's tough to move to their first names. They're going to kick things off.
In the 60s. My wife Faye and I were very blessed to have Glenn and Mary as friends. We did a lot with them, spent a lot of time with them. We went out to eat a lot, and yes, we saw Glenn enjoy his burger and fries and share pop quite often. Glenn loves sports, and I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about Glenn and his sports. Golf, he was a good golfer, he enjoyed the game. He did have a bad back. Many of you know he had, I think, 5 back surgeries that limited his ability to play golf. Now, all of you who have played golf, you know it can be a very frustrating game. And that results in some inappropriate language sometimes. Now, I'm not going to tell you to use any inappropriate language because he can. Never heard you 4-letter words come out of Glenn's mouth. But you knew Glenn was frustrated when he came to say one word. Some of you probably know what that is. I'll give you my best Glenn imitation. Mercy. Mercy. Glenn was a good tennis player, too. I remember one hot Saturday afternoon, I think it was the late 1970s, we had moved our families into a cottage just south of Lake Macatawa, all the way Lake Michigan. And Glenn and I headed out to play some tennis. Found a nearby school with a tennis court and began the game. He was a much better player than I was. He had me running from side to side. I was getting tired and frustrated. I was the one who needed mercy. Did I get it from Glenn? No, I didn't get it from Glenn. He was enjoying himself way too much. He was a good basketball player. In fact, I think it was either 64 or 65, he was toying with the idea of going out for Calvin's team. Just so happened that year, Coach Steve mandated anybody and everybody who was going to be going out for the team had to run Calvin's 6-mile cross-country course. Now, there weren't many buildings on the Calvin property at that point, so this course just meandered through the woods and the underbrush and so forth. Well, I was running alongside Wes. I think we were going alongside the East Beltline, heading toward Lake Drive, and Glenn was out ahead of us a little bit. Suddenly, Wes and I realized that we could take a shortcut. So we just got through the woods a little bit, the underbrush, and actually hid there for a while until Glenn came along. Now, the classy guys that we are, we didn't jump in ahead of him. We waited for him to pass and we fell down behind him. But Glenn didn't think we were too classy at that point. But it's one of those things you talk about for years and years afterward, having a good laugh about. Now, one of Glenn's basketball highlights actually occurred after the game in the locker room. We played on a team in the Wyoming Recreation League. This was some pretty high-powered athletes in that league, too. Mickey Phelps, one of the best ever to play for Calvin College, played in that league. M.C. Burton, Muskegon Heights All-Stater, captain of the Michigan basketball team for a couple of years. He was a young doctor in town. He played. And how about the Detroit Tigers center fielder, Mickey Stanley? He showed up from time to time. But at any rate, this particular evening, we had a big center by the name of Chuck Jones who was injured for that game. He showed up at the game, however, and he decided to keep statistics. So in the locker room after the game, he was announcing who scored what points and so forth, and he came to rebounds, and he said, Canuster 2, DeMots 17. Now, Bill took issue with that, maybe rightly so, but believe me, Glenn never let Bill forget about that 17-2 rebound. Glenn was a good softball player, too. Pitcher for Mayfair CRC. I was honored to be his catcher for a dozen years or so. Do I have time to tell this pickoff story, Wes? Wes was involved in this, too. This came before my time. This will be my final story, and I'll pass it on to Bill. Wes was a third baseman. Glenn was a pitcher. They had concocted a scheme. As soon as Glenn got the ball back from the catcher, he would whip it over to Wes at third base. Now, there was an umpire out there. I think his name was Heine. And he was an old guy. And he was dozing a little bit. He was the base umpire. So Glenn fired it over to Wes. The runner was standing there on third base. But both of them said, all right, all right. Well, Heine woke up at that point, looked over there and said, you're out. That was a story Glenn told. How many times, Mary, have you heard that story? Well, Glenn was a great guy, just a great friend, man of integrity, and we're going to miss him. Thanks for this time.
Well, like Jim, I'm honored, feel very privileged to say a few words about Glenn. Most of you might know, or some of you might know, that Glenn and I were friends for, I'd say, over 62, 63 years. We first met on a basketball court at Central YMCA in downtown Grand Rapids. Some of you may remember that, where the track was around the top of the court, and you had to shoot the ball, at a very low angle in order to get the basket. Glenn was a very, very good outside shooter on that court. And from there, of course, we met there, but then we played a lot of rec ball, like Jim said. He embellished a little bit, stories about sports and all that. But, maybe I had 3 rebounds, is that what you said? Then we went to Calvin College, and I would take some pride in being one of the people that maybe convinced Glenn to go to college, because when he graduated, graduated from high school, he was working in a produce place. He was not going to college. And so, I was one of the people that urged him to think about doing that. And certainly, he did. And so, the rest is history. He went into social work and then Bethany and so on, became CEO. But one of the things I remember during that era at Calvin is that we both dated nurses at the Blodgett Nursing Center. Glenn was dating Mary, I was dating another gal, and sometimes we'd get it in the parking lot a little late. And often when I would come in the parking lot, Glenn and Mary's car was all steamed up. And I wondered how that could happen, at that time, as naive as I was. That was one of the stories that I remember from our college years. Then we worked together, for 5 or 6 years at laying bricks. We worked for Marmon Masonry. And this is unfortunately the time that Glenn hurt his back the first time. And as Jim described, he had at least 5 other surgeries on that back, and the back was never the same. But lifting all those heavy blocks and bricks and laying the bricks, was not good for Glenn, and so that was a bad situation. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about Glenn's personality. As most of you know, he's wise, he's very religious, he's very giving, but he's also very generous. The golf clubs that Glenn used to the end of the day, he gave to me, and he couldn't golf anymore. I have tennis rackets in Florida they gave to me when he said he couldn't play tennis anymore. I have all kinds of shirts and socks and shoes even that he gave to me. And this is just one side of Glenn, that he was always looking to help others out, particularly poor me. We needed stuff like that, so he would hand it to me. In terms of social life, Glenn, as Jim mentioned, and we spent many times together. We camped together, we took trips together, we had lots of dinners together, and during all that time, we always had a great time together. I'm going to tell you one story about the humor side that Glenn had. Many years ago, in my younger years, when I didn't know any better, I wrote a little letter to the banner, the Christian Reformed church blot that had letters to the editor. And I forget what the issue was, but I took the editor at that time, Andrew Kuyvenhoven was his name, I took him to task for something, I forget what, some minor thing. And I worried about that a little bit, because Andrew Kuyvenhoven was quite a well-known person in the Christian Reformed Church. And one day the phone rings, and I say, hello, and they say, this is Andrew Kuyvenhoven. I just want you to know that I really took, very, very deep concern about what you were growing. And he went on, just taking me to task. And after a while, I figured out, hey, this is Glenn. Glenn is with me. But I turned the table on him. Once I called him, when he was still at Bethany, before he became CEO, and he was doing intake and so on, I pretended to be a client. And so I started asking various questions, saying certain lies about myself. Glenn went through this whole counseling act, who is this person that's doing this, and what is really your problem, and all that sort of stuff. Until we finally, decided that, I finally gave up and told him who I was. And he had a sigh of relief, I'm sure, that it was not a real client, but that it was me. So I just want to end by saying that all of us I know will have missed Glenn greatly. He was a wonderful friend, a wonderful person, and I think the fact that there's so many of you here today to witness this is a good indication of that. So thank you very much.
I'm Linda Gallion, Glenn's executive assistant at Bethany Christian Services from March 1995 when Glenn hired me until he retired in 2005. For some of us who worked with Glenn at Bethany, he was the other gentle giant, sharing the same spirit with his former colleague and longtime friend Dick Luters, the gentle giant. Glenn was a trusted, kind-hearted, and humble servant leader, but he could also be tough when he had to be. He was respected by those he served. and he respected those he served with. Not only was he the boss, he felt like he cared about you as a friend. His office had an open door, and he would make time for anyone who needed to talk with him. Staff morale was high during Glenn's presidency, and he encouraged us through planned events like regular chapel services, staff meetings, and the famous Pegs picnics out on the lawn in the summer. But more likely it was because we felt confident and secure in our jobs and genuinely appreciated by leadership. We were proud of and committed to the work and mission of Bethany. Glenn would often ask me, what was I hearing from staff? Was it positive? Were there any issues or problems that might affect morale or the health of the organization? I guess that was just his way to keep tabs on the health of the agency. We all know that Glenn was a good storyteller and jokester. He laughed at his own jokes, and his humor never offended anyone. He loved a good laugh, even at some of the shenanigans in the national office. There were a few of us at Bethany who loved to play pranks on Glenn. We remember one when our graphic designer at the time put a picture of Glenn's head on the body of a Chippendale dancer. You can kind of see this, right? Tight black leather pants, white shirt, unbuttoned practically to the navel, and a black bow tie around his neck. You can really see this, right? So then we printed off a life-size copy of that and taped it to the inside of his office door. We sat back and waited until the time when he closed his door. Surprise! It did take a day or two, and we can't remember if he had anyone important in his office when he made that discovery. But word quickly spread around the building, and we all had a very good laugh. The best part is that he didn't take it down right away. I think it stayed there for a week or so, and he must have been impressed with himself. And so impressed that he invited Mary down to see it, right, Mary? Glenn began his career at Bethany in 1969 as a social worker and family counselor. Later, he was the Grand Rapids branch director before he was recruited from the ranks to become Bethany's president and CEO. His direct service and leadership experience, his personal philosophy, and his strong Christian values guided and grew the Bethany family from 1991 to 2005. He deeply cared for those who were suffering, and this fit well with Bethany's mission to serve vulnerable children and families, both in the U.S. and around the world. He valued Bethany's history in building on the founder's vision. When faced with a critical decision, you might have heard him say, "What would Mary and Marguerite do?" And at times when trying to balance Bethany values and policies with the requirements of government funding, his approach was to stay under the radar. The organization grew and diversified under his leadership. I would describe Glenn's leadership style as relational. He developed and nurtured strong relationships with major donors, and particularly with board members and branch directors. He saw the importance of bringing them to the corporate office to see what they were part of and what support they had from Big Bethany. I have fond memories of planning and participating in our national conferences on the Grand Rapids campus and connecting with staff that we otherwise would only know by phone or computer. He invested in excellent speakers who provided insights and training for the clinical and professional development of our branch leaders. Staff especially valued the social times included with these conferences to bond together, share experiences, and learn who to connect with when faced with a difficult decision. Glenn brought us together and grew our commitment to serving God, children, families, and each other through our work at Bethany. I will remember Glenn's thoughtfulness when late in April he left a voice message on our home phone to let Roy and me know why he hadn't been in touch lately. He explained about the cold vessel he was dealing with, and also Mary's upcoming knee surgery the next day, and that we wouldn't be able to get together for our regular lunch with him for a while. This was so Glenn, to be so considerate. A week later, I texted him to see how they were doing, and he did respond to me about 10 p.m. The next morning, I learned that he had died. I will really miss Glenn, but I replay that phone message every so often, so I can be reminded of his kindness and friendship in our retirement years. Glenn was truly a gift from God to Bethany and to me.
Bill Skinner, and I've known Glenn the last 10 years, and I certainly recognize the descriptions that we've been listening to. I'm very touched with them. I'm unable to be profound or as funny as these folks before me, but I can be brief. So, and I think if I go too long, there's a buzzer that's going to sound. But anyway, my remarks will be brief but heartfelt. For all of us here today, Glenn was very, very special. As you know, Glenn was a servant of the Lord and a wonderful, wonderful friend. I was blessed to serve with Glenn for 10 years in a volunteer ministry called Hands of Jesus, a ministry that Glenn started, led, coordinated, and served. In those 10 years, volunteers completed over 700 individual projects without cost to the people that we helped, and without us doing any damage to their homes, which is a blessing from the Lord. Praise the Lord. Projects were of many types, some as simple as changing a light bulb, and some as complex as preparing a house for sale, both inside and outside. All were based on what was needed. As we were able, and most volunteers were of retirement age. In addition to the satisfaction of jobs well done, these were some of the best 10 years of my life because of Glenn's friendship. Glenn, as a servant, embodied the essence of essential Bible truths, such as, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is within your power to do so. And as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, especially to those who are of the household of faith. That's what we did. We did not spend much time looking for reasons not to help when opportunities presented themselves. Excuses such as, shouldn't someone else be doing this? Why don't they hire someone to do this? Or, this is not what we usually do. And then there's another Bible verse. We are his workmanship, created in Jesus Christ for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. Well, how can you go wrong with that? God's prepared it. He set everything up. And all we have to do is take a step and go ahead. It works. Here's another verse. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to visit widows and orphans in their affliction and distress. Some versions and commentaries say that the visit says things like show up in person, listen, and care for them as needed. And what kind of distress do widows and orphans have? Well, sometimes widows have all kinds of distress. It could be anything. Sometimes it was their Comcast account that needed to be straightened out. It could be anything. Glenn and I had many conversations as friends about the things important to us. Family, friends, projects, and some of the tricks that he played on family and friends. And the names Bill Canuster and Claire came up more than once. Glenn even told me a couple of tricks that backfired on him, and he enjoyed those too, so I recognized all of these stories. Here are some expressions that I can hear Glenn say, and I think about them almost every day now. I think about them, I hear things like administrative overlay. I could not find a Bible verse that endorses that type of thing. So we minimize that, especially for the volunteers. The volunteers didn't want to be messing with it. Bureaucratic stuff. They just wanted to get out there and help people, so we did that. Another expression I delight in that I heard from Glenn was, "We will give your suggestion all the consideration that it merits." I thought that sounded very classy, and I've used that since. I've tried it on my wife, and it doesn't work so well. We often said, when someone called, we will take a look at it. There's just no substitute for showing up and seeing what needs to be done. We often said, we do what we can. Many times people tried to thank us, and Glenn would say, well, you already have, and this is a mutual blessing. And it really was. People could see we really had a good time helping them. So he often said, it's a mutual blessing. Glenn was a servant and a friend, and we had many conversations. Usually, we talked at great length. Usually ended with Glenn saying, I will let you go. Talk to you again soon. Well, after Glenn went suddenly to heaven, I had a lot of thoughts and feelings, and still do. And I would say, well, Glenn, I'll let you go. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. I'd like to talk about my brother Glenn a little bit. My dad and mom had 3 boys. We were all 3 years apart. I was the youngest. So Glenn kind of took me under his wings and was my big brother. We did a lot of things together. We played a lot of basketball. He was a great brother and a great friend. We had a few disagreements. Whenever we did, Glenn would just whoop me and that would take care of it. Glenn had a saying that he used, and he counseled people who were going to do some public speaking. He used it on my dad before sermons, occasionally, and that was, make sure you observe the 5 B's. And that is, be brief, baby, be brief. So I'll try to do that. We have a favorite text in our family. It's Micah 6, verse 8. It says, He has shown you, O man, what is good. And that is to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. I'd like to just say how Glenn lived that out in his life. He was a just man. He was faithful husband, great father. Don't keep looking at me like that, Karen. He was a great father. He was a great leader and co-worker at Bethany. He was a just man. A few things for Glenn were kind of Glenn's form of justice. He didn't like barking dogs. When he was just married to Mary, living on Ethel Street, there was a dog that did a lot of barking all night. Glenn would, of course, be awake and his neighbor would be sleeping soundly. Glenn would call him on the phone and say, "Your dog is barking." So then they were both awake for the rest of the night. He also didn't like loud music on the golf course. Mary shared with me 3 letters that he wrote to the staff there at Thousand Oaks. Each one a little more strident over a period of a year. He didn't seem to get any good results. So Glenn gave up, I think, after 3 years, maybe. He even had a little vendetta against wind chimes, I think, too. But those were some of the trivial forms of justice, but in the important things, Glenn acted justly. Glenn loved mercy. We've heard a lot here today about what he did at Bethany, how he served people, how he helped little kids get adopted, how he flew back from Vietnam or Korea on an 8-hour flight with 2 little babies in each arm, afraid to even scratch his nose because one might wake up. So he loved those little kids and he was merciful. And he had a great love for the families that would take these little kids in. He had a special love for families that would take in special needs kids. He loved them, talked about them a lot. Bill talked about the Helping Hands ministry. He loved that, Bill. He talked about it. He told me about some of the things that you did. I think there was one time where you helped a lady with some raccoons that were repeatedly. I don't know how you guys resolved that, but he was happy with the results. So maybe get raccoons, I don't know. Glenn walked humbly with his God. He never sought personal accolades. That wasn't his thing. He was a humble servant. I think Jim was talking about Glenn's basketball career. My brother Henry and I both played at Christian High in Calvin. Glenn got cut from the team at Christian High from Coach Wes Fryhoff. But as Jim mentioned, he formed a rec team with a bunch of guys who also got cut. And they became the terror of the rec league. Glenn was knocking down 20-footers from all over. But he aptly named his team Wes's Rejects. So he was even humble about that. So the question is, what does God require of you? I believe Glenn's life showed the way. He lived a life of justness, mercy, and humbleness. And now I'd like to close with prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for this day that we could have together here to honor Glenn's memory, to celebrate his life. We thank you for the lives that he touched while he was living here. He was a great man. He was a great father, great husband, and a great brother. We thank you for that, Lord. We ask that you will be with Mary and the children as they try to fill this void in their life, Lord. Bless them with your love and your care, and help them to feel your love as they miss Glenn. We thank you for the love of Jesus, that he died for us. That it says in the Bible, for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that who believes on him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. We know Glenn is there. Thank you for that, Lord. And now, Lord, as we close this gathering, we thank you for your blessings, for these people, for these friends, and for this family. In your name.